The other weekend, I stood at a protest. No violence, no chaos. People were just standing there. And still, it provoked something. A truck rolled by, blowing black smoke at people. And an older woman was crossing the street at the same time. And for a moment, you could feel it, that tension, that anger directed at people who weren't doing anything at all. And it made me think of something that happened in 1960. On February 1st, 1960, 4 college students walked into a Woolworth store in Greensboro, North Carolina. They were well dressed, calm, and respectful. They sat down at the lunch counter. They asked to be served. They were denied because of the color of their skin. Now here's what makes that moment different. They didn't argue. They didn't protest loudly. They didn't leave. They just stayed. And at first, maybe it didn't seem like much, but then people started to notice, and a crowd formed. Some curious, some angry, some entertained. And then the harassment began. Food was dumped on them, ketchup poured over their heads, coffee splashed, cigarettes waved near their faces. People tried to provoke them, to get them to react, to justify what was happening. And they didn't. They just sat there, still, quiet, present. And that kind of restraint is hard to understand unless you've really thought about it. Because everything in you would want to react, to defend yourself, to stand up and say something. But they had already decided something deeper. They weren't just sitting at a counter. They were holding a mirror up to the world. And what the world saw was ugly, and it couldn't look away. The next day, they came back, and then more students joined, then dozens, then hundreds. Within weeks, sit-ins spread across the South. And eventually, those lunch counters were desegregated. But it didn't start with a law. It started with a decision, a quiet one, to sit down and not move. And I think about that a lot, because we live in a world that tells us, be louder, be faster, react immediately. But this was something different. It was power without aggression, strength without force. And it makes you wonder, what would change if more of us learned how to hold that kind of stillness? Not silence from fear, but silence from clarity. Not inaction, but intentional presence. Those 4 students didn't just sit at a counter. They shifted something in the culture, and they did it without raising their voices, just by refusing to move. And sometimes that's enough to change everything. It's strange, sometimes it's not chaos that makes people uncomfortable. It's calm, it's presence, it's people quietly standing or sitting in something they believe in. They were just sitting, we were just standing, and somehow that was enough to provoke something. Not all change is loud. Some of it just sits quietly, refusing to move.